Yeah, yeah,
In just 37 seconds, a conversation
yeah,
that was supposed to showcase grace and composure spiraled into chaos. This is the story of how one interview became a disaster, and how a guest who walked onto the set with confidence walked off in disgrace. The studio lights were hot that morning. Good Morning America was buzzing with anticipation. Meghan Markle was scheduled to appear, and everyone knew this was going to be big. The cameras were positioned perfectly. In just 37 seconds, the crew had gone over a conversation
yeah,
that was supposed to showcase George grace and composure, sat in his chair, spiraled into chaos. His notes prepared, his demeanor calm and professional as always. He had conducted thousands of interviews. He had spoken with presidents and prime ministers. He had questioned world leaders and celebrities. This was supposed to be just another conversation. But from the moment Meghan walked onto that set, something felt different. There was a tension in the air. You could feel it. The makeup artists noticed it. The camera operators sensed it. Even the producers in the control room felt an uneasy shift in the atmosphere. The green room had been prepared with fresh flowers and bottled water. Everything was arranged to make their guest feel comfortable and welcomed. The team had been briefed on how to approach the interview with care. They knew this was a sensitive conversation. They knew there were topics to handle delicately. But they also knew that George was the right person for the job. He always was. His reputation spoke for itself. Calm under pressure. Thoughtful in his questioning. Fair in his approach. He did not play games. He did not set traps. He simply asked questions and let people tell their stories. That was his style. That was what made him one of the most respected journalists in the business. George stood up to greet her. He extended his hand with a warm smile. "Welcome to Good Morning America," he said. His voice was friendly, professional, exactly what you would expect from someone who had been doing this for decades. Every guest who had ever sat across from George knew that feeling, that sense of being in safe hands. Meghan shook his hand, but her expression was cold. There was no warmth, no gratitude, no acknowledgement of the courtesy he was extending. Just a look that seemed to say she was doing everyone a favor by being there. She sat down and adjusted her microphone without saying a word. No thank you. No pleasantries. Just silence. An uncomfortable silence that made everyone in the studio shift awkwardly. George returned to his seat, seemingly unfazed. He had dealt with difficult guests before. He had interviewed people who were hostile, people who were defensive, people who clearly did not want to be there. This would be no different. Or so he thought. "Thank you so much for joining us today," George began. His tone was genuine, respectful, the kind of warmth that made viewers feel like they were part of a real moment. "I know you have a lot going on, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us this morning." It was a simple opening, a standard way to begin any interview, a gesture of respect that acknowledged the guest's time, the kind of thing that usually elicited a smile, a nod, maybe a brief thank you. But instead of acknowledging it, Meghan just stared at him. Her eyes were cold, her posture rigid. Silence hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. Then she finally spoke. "Well, I am very busy, so let us get to it," she said. Her voice was sharp, dismissive, the kind of tone that immediately puts people on edge. It was not just the words. It was the way she said them. like George's courtesy was an inconvenience. George nodded, refusing to let her attitude derail him. He was a professional. He had been in this business long enough to know how to handle moments like this. You do not match rudeness with rudeness. You stay steady. You stay professional. You do your job. Absolutely, George said with a smile. He was determined to keep this professional. I want to start by asking about your recent projects and what you have been working on. It was an easy question, a softball, the kind of question designed to let a guest shine and talk about themselves. It gave them control. It let them steer the conversation toward whatever they wanted to discuss. It was the perfect opening for someone who wanted to share their story. It was respectful. It was simple. It was exactly the kind of question any good interviewer would ask at the start of a conversation. But Meghan did not seem interested in easy. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. Yes, her body language was defensive, closed off, the kind of posture that says, I do not want to be here, and I am not going to make this easy for you. That is a very basic question, George, she said. There was a hint of mockery in her voice, a condescension that was impossible to miss. I thought this was supposed to be a serious interview. I expected more from someone of your stature. The words landed like a slap across the face. You could see George stiffen for just a second, a tiny flicker of surprise crossing his features, but he recovered quickly. Years of experience had taught him how to absorb an insult and keep moving forward. Well, I think our audience would love to hear about what you have been up to, he said calmly, refusing to take the bait. That is why we invited you here. That is why people tune in. They want to hear your story. Meghan let out a small laugh. Not a genuine laugh. It was condescending. Cold. The kind of laugh that makes it clear someone thinks they are above the conversation. The audience, she repeated, as if the word itself was beneath her. Do you really think the audience cares about the details of my projects? Or are they just here for the spectacle? Let us be honest about what this really is. Her tone was accusatory now, like she was suggesting George and the show were running some kind of circus. George did not take the bait. He kept his composure. So I think people are genuinely interested in your work and your perspective, he said. Every word was measured. That is why you are here. That is why we are having this conversation. We want to give you a platform to share what matters to you. But Meghan was not backing down. If anything, she seemed to be enjoying the confrontation. My perspective, she said slowly, drawing out the words. You mean the perspective you want to fit into your narrative, the one that makes for good television, and the one that gets your ratings up. George stayed calm, but you could tell this was starting to test even his patience. His jaw tightened slightly. I am here to have a real conversation with you, he said. His voice was still professional, but there was an edge now. That is all this is. There is no hidden agenda. There is no narrative we are trying to push. If there is something specific you would like to talk about, I am happy to go there. This is your time, your platform, and use it however you want. It was a generous offer, a way out, a chance for Meghan to reset. Meghan tilted her head as if she was considering his offer, but then she said something that changed the entire tone. A real conversation, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. That is rich coming from someone who sits here every morning, reading off a teleprompter and pretending to care about the stories you are told to cover. Do you even have your own thoughts, George? Or do they give you those too? The room went silent. Completely. Utterly silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy. That presses down on everyone in the space. The crew members looked at each other in disbelief. Their faces showed shock, confusion, anger on George's behalf. This was not just rude. This was not just someone having a bad day or being a little difficult. This was a direct attack on George, on his integrity, on everything he had built over a career spanning decades. And it was happening live, on national television. Millions of people were watching this unfold. George took a breath. You could see him weighing his options. You could see the thoughts racing through his mind. He could fire back. He could defend himself. He could point out all the things he had accomplished, all the important conversations he had facilitated, all the lives he had touched through his work. But instead, he chose to stay professional, because that is who George Stephanopoulos is. And that is what separates someone like him from everyone else. I respect your opinion, he said, though his voice had lost some of its warmth. It was cooler now, more measured. But I have been doing this for a very long time, and I take my work very seriously. I ask questions because I want to understand. I want to learn. I want to give people like you a platform to share your voice. That is my job. That is what I do, and I am proud of it. Meghan scoffed. Actually scoffed. On live television. You see, in front of millions of viewers, the sound was loud and deliberately disrespectful. A platform, she said, shaking her head like she could not believe what she was hearing. You act like you are doing me a favor, like I should be grateful to be here, like I should be thankful that George Stephanopoulos is gracing me with his precious time and his precious questions. Do you know how many interview requests I get? Do you know how many shows would love to have me on? Do you know how many producers call my team every single day begging for just 5 minutes of my time? I chose to come here, George. I chose to give you this opportunity. I chose to sit in this chair and answer your questions. And this is how you treat me? With these shallow, pointless, amateur questions? This is what you prepared? This is what you thought was worthy of my time. Her voice was rising now, getting louder, more aggressive. The entitled anger was pouring out of her. You could see the crew shifting uncomfortably. This was getting bad. This was getting really bad. George leaned forward slightly. His expression was still calm, but there was a firmness to his voice now, a steel that had not been there before. I have treated you with nothing but respect since you walked in here, he said. Each word was clear, deliberate, firm. I welcomed you. I thanked you for coming. I asked you straightforward questions to start the conversation. Questions that would allow you to share whatever you wanted to share. If that is not good enough for you, if my hospitality and my professionalism are somehow offensive to you, then I am not sure what else I can do. I am not sure what you expected when you agreed to this interview. Meghan's eyes narrowed. They became thin slits of anger and indignation. She was not used to being challenged. You could see it in her face. You could see it in the way her entire body tensed up. She was used to people nodding along, agreeing with her, treating her like royalty. She was used to deference, to people walking on eggshells around her, to everyone telling her she was right and wonderful and special. But George was not playing that game. He was treating her like any other guest, like someone who needed to answer questions, not someone who was above them, like a human being, not a deity. Respect, Meghan said, almost spitting the word out like it tasted foul in her mouth. You call this respect? Asking me basic questions like I am some nobody you pulled off the street? Like I am just another person who wandered in here? Do you have any idea who I am? Do you have any idea what I have done? I have done more in my life than most people could ever dream of. I have been on the world stage. I have faced scrutiny you could not even imagine. I have dealt with things that would break most people. And you sit here and ask me about my projects like I am here to promote some little hobby. Like I am some influencer trying to sell something. Is that really what you think of me? George shook his head, not in anger, not in frustration, in disappointment. Pure, genuine disappointment. The kind of disappointment that comes from watching someone throw away an opportunity. From seeing someone sabotage themselves. I think you are misunderstanding the purpose of this interview, he said quietly. His voice was calm, but carried weight. This is not about making you look bad. This is not about attacking you. This is not about setting you up or tearing you down. This is about having a conversation. A real, honest conversation. That is what we do here. We talk to people. We ask them questions. We try to understand their story. We give them a chance to be heard. If you do not want to be a part of that, if that is somehow beneath you or offensive to you, then I am genuinely not sure why you agreed to come on the show. Nobody forced you to be here. You accepted our invitation. You sat in that chair. And now you are acting like we are the ones who did something wrong. The truth in his words hung in the air. Everyone in the studio could feel it. Everyone watching at home could feel it. He was right. Completely. Undeniably right. That seemed to hit a nerve. Meghan's face flushed. A deep red spread across her cheeks. Her nostrils flared. She uncrossed her arms and leaned forward, pointing a finger directly at George. "Do not lecture me about why I am here," she said, her voice rising to a near shout. "You do not get to tell me what this interview is supposed to be. You do not get to dictate how I should respond. You do not get to sit there, in your nice suit and your fancy chair, and tell me how I should feel. I came here because I thought you were capable of having an intelligent conversation. I came here because I thought you had the depth and the understanding to engage with me on a real level. But clearly, I was wrong. Clearly, I overestimated you." George did not raise his voice. He did not need to. When you have the truth on your side, when you have conducted yourself with integrity, you do not need to shout. You do not need to get angry. You just need to speak clearly. "I have had intelligent conversations with world leaders," he said. His voice was steady, firm, unwavering. "I have interviewed presidents and prime ministers. I have spoken with scientists who are changing our understanding of the universe. I have talked with artists who are shaping our culture. I have sat across from people from every walk of life, from every background, from every corner of the world. And every single one of them understood that an interview is a dialogue. It requires both people to participate. It requires mutual respect. It requires a willingness to engage honestly. And right now, I do not feel like you are respecting this process. And you are certainly not respecting me. You are not respecting this show. You are not respecting the people who work here. And you are not respecting the millions of viewers who tuned in hoping to hear something meaningful from you." Each word was like a hammer blow. Precise, powerful, undeniable. Meghan stood up abruptly. The movement was so sudden, so violent, that it startled everyone in the studio. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. The microphone pack clipped to her belt swung wildly. "Respecting you?" she practically shouted. Her voice was dripping with contempt, with venom. "You want to talk about respect? You invited me here under the pretense of a meaningful discussion, and all you have done is waste my time with your trivial, insulting questions. You are not a journalist, George. You are a puppet, a mouthpiece. Someone who reads words off a screen and pretends to have opinions. And I will not sit here and be part of your little charade. I will not be used for your ratings. I will not let you treat me like I am just another guest on your mediocre little show." That was it. That was the line. That was the moment where everything changed. George had given her every opportunity to turn this around. He had been patient. He had been respectful. Or he had tried to keep the conversation on track despite her constant attacks and insults. He had absorbed her condescension, her rudeness, her entitled behavior. He had done everything a professional journalist should do when dealing with a difficult guest. But there was only so much he could take. There was only so much anyone should have to take. There comes a point when patience stops being a virtue and starts being a doormat. There comes a point when you have to stand up for yourself, for your team, for your work. George stood up as well, his face serious but composed. "I think we are done here," he said. His voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the finality in it. The absolute, unshakable finality. "I have been nothing but professional with you from the moment you walked through that door. I have treated you with courtesy and respect. I have asked you fair questions. I have given you every opportunity to have a meaningful conversation. And you have insulted me. You have insulted this show. You have insulted everyone who works here. People who come in early every morning to put together a program that millions of Americans rely on. People who work hard to bring important stories to the public. I do not know what you were expecting when you came on today, but this is not how we do things here. This is not acceptable, and I will not allow it to continue." Meghan looked stunned. Genuinely, completely stunned. For a moment she seemed at a loss for words. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. This was clearly not how she thought this would go. She had pushed and pushed, expecting George to bend, expecting him to take it, expecting him to be like everyone else who just absorbed her behavior and moved on. But George was not everyone else. The defiance returned to her face quickly. "You are kicking me off?" she said, her voice shrill now, incredulous, as if the very idea was absurd, as if it was impossible that someone would dare to remove her from their show. "You are actually kicking me off your show. Do you have any idea what you are doing? Do you have any idea who you are talking to?" George nodded. Just once. Firm and final. "Yes," he said simply. One word. That is all it took. "I am. Because this is my show. This is our show. And I will not allow anyone, no matter who they are, no matter what their title is, no matter how famous they think they are, to come in here and act like this. You can leave now." The crew was frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody knew what to do. They had never seen anything like this. This kind of thing did not happen on Good Morning America. Guests did not get kicked off. Interviews did not end like this. The show had been on the air for decades, and nothing even close to this had ever occurred. But here it was, happening right in front of them, being broadcast to millions of homes across America. It's a moment that would be replayed and analyzed and talked about for years to come. Meghan grabbed her bag. She yanked it up from beside her chair with such force that it nearly flew across the set. Then she grabbed at her microphone, ripping it off with no care for the equipment. The wire pulled taut and then snapped free. "This is unbelievable," she muttered, though everyone could hear her perfectly. The studio was so quiet that even a whisper would have carried. "You are going to regret this. George, you have no idea who you are dealing with. You have no idea what you just did. This will not end well for you. I promise you that." The threats were empty. Everyone knew it. But she kept talking anyway. George did not flinch. He did not react. He just stood there, completely still, completely calm. "I know exactly who I am dealing with," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried throughout the entire studio. "And I stand by my decision. Goodbye." One word. Goodbye. Final. Absolute. Unmistakable. With that, Meghan turned on her heel and stormed off the set. Her heels clicked loudly against the hard floor as she walked away, each step echoing through the silent studio. The sound seemed to go on forever. Click, 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 getting fainter as she moved further from the cameras, further from the lights, further from the interview that she had destroyed with her own behavior. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every second, every moment of the meltdown, every step of her humiliating exit. The producers in the control room did not cut away. They let it play out. They let America see exactly what had happened. George stood there for a long moment, just breathing, taking it all in, processing what had just happened, You could see the weight of it on his shoulders. But you could also see something else. Relief. The knowledge that he had done the right thing. That he had stood up for himself and for everyone who worked on that show. And then he turned slowly to face the camera. His expression was calm, composed, professional. Exactly what you would expect from George Stephanopoulos. "We are going to take a quick break," he said. His voice was steady, strong. "We will be right back." And just like that, they cut to commercial. The interview was over. Meghan Markle had been kicked off Good Morning America, and George Stephanopoulos had handled it with the kind of grace and professionalism that had defined his entire career. He did not lose his temper. He did not yell. He did not stoop to her level. He simply stood his ground. He drew a line. He made it clear that there were standards, that there were expectations, and that no one was above them. That is what separates the true professionals from everyone else. They know when to be patient. They know when to listen, but they also know when to draw the line, when to say enough is enough, when to stand up and say,